This is a video on the price of Sentience. I'm going to draw while I do this. So recently I finished Dr. Albert Ellis's Reason and Emotion and Behavior Therapy and started the anatomy coloring book. I got this little bicycle, under the table thing. One sec, I'll even show it to you. I was just broke and couldn't afford much else, to be honest, but it's not quite the same as an exercise bicycle, but it does allow me to work on the desk as I'm doing it. So, with the anatomy coloring book previously, I would handwrite all the text from one page per day. Since I'm doing the foot bicycle thing a minimum of 2 hours daily, I'm getting a lot more done than just one page per day. I'm getting in about 3 pages a day. And, I've already started this one, so it's kind of previously colored in up to page 10. Yeah, apparently I stopped halfway through page 10, but this really activates dormant neurons. Plus, I'm taking a 220 milligram caffeine, which stimulates dormant neurons. Now, because Vashon Island white liberals and white Jews are so shitty, they didn't get me and refused to even acknowledge help for my mental illness. So I thought it was a brain injury because I was deliberately deprived of help and care by fucking scumbag liberal assholes. Not that conservatives are any better, like I'm dealing with that now. But they at least try to help, but fucking retarded. Whole different story. Anyway. So with this stimulation of the neurons that increases brain activity, I think it's contributing to an increase in positive symptoms of my schizoaffective disorder. Now, this could be marijuana in my surroundings, but I am skeptical to label that as the cause of these particular episodes because even though these symptoms are present, I also have a lot of strong cognitive functions, no detachment, some detachment, but not to the severity it is when it's caused by CBD or marijuana. For example, if I get on, BitChute or the internet in general and I see some shitty fucking weed junkie scumbag posting his marijuana, that could piss me off, but that is not the same as actually breathing in secondhand smoke. So that's just a stressor at best, which I really yes, that has to do with this. The best thing about that would be if we could just murder those fucking people. Like if I could just get a shotgun and blow their fucking brains out. That would be awesome. I would love that. And that would really be a positive contribution to society. Now, some of you might be like, oh, he's Fed posting, but, well, the Feds already know all this. Like, the Feds have known about me for years, since I lived in a tree to save it from being cut down. I've been through the federal courts before. When I electrocuted myself, the FBI arrested and prosecuted the homeless schizophrenic for electrocuting himself in an episode of Schizophrenia brought on by the marijuana I was selling and smoking at the time. So the competency of the FBI is not that great, but their immorality sure is reliable. So in this particular episode, and I don't even know if it's full on an episode because, like I said, I'm very functional, very high functioning right now. And my barometer for that, the unit of measure for contrast there, is what I am getting done well in these states, right? Like if I can read, if I can write, if I can articulate, versus where marijuana sets me off, it's almost completely dysfunctional with brief interludes of mild functioning to somewhat functioning. The internet, posting on the internet, that's no measure of functionality because it's literally designed so the biggest fucking retards, aka niggers, can fucking use the internet. Yeah. So in these episodes, I'm fantasizing about homicide. I'm actually hallucinating, seeing myself commit these homicides where I slip into delusion, but this is happening while I am also present. So it's almost like my two minds are functioning simultaneously, the one in reality and the one in fantasy. The one in reality is, of course, working on my animation, you know, making sure the desk is arranged neatly, etc. Where the other one is seeing myself with like a shotgun, killing my ex and the guy she cheated on me with, etc. And not that I intend on acting on any of this stuff. If I did, I would not be posting it on the internet. But this has nothing to do with my ex. It's not like I still love her or anything or any of that. No, because these eventually transfer to corrupt politicians like Javier Martinez, the Democrat in New Mexico who led the legalization of marijuana, and then to people who just smoke marijuana in my environment, and then to marijuana dealers, and so on. Like, if you're gonna murder the corrupt people, you've got a long list of people who will shoot back. But this is the price of sentience, because this is happening, yet my senses are much sharper. So I'm like, I smelled the and tasted the chemicals in the tap water that my roommates did not. And now I'm boiling it, which has helped, and I stopped boiling it there for a little while. I'm not sure. Oh, I thought there was a water filter coming in today that I ordered on Amazon. But it didn't show up. They fucked it up. But yeah, sharp senses are very important. And they're talking about putting me on medication because conservatives are just fucking retarded. And like that guy, I'm talking to him, and I very specifically told him that marijuana activates and exacerbates my schizophrenia, so avoiding marijuana is key, is like the cure for my schizophrenia, essentially. That I've been fucking doing this for like 10 years. This fucking retard refused to believe that. Like, he just could not put it together that that's how it worked. Like, that's how fucking stupid he was. And he was like, yeah, it's just medication. And I very specifically told him, well, if cannabis is the cause, the solution is not the addition of neuroleptics and, antipsychotics that are dopamine blockers and serotonin reuptake inhibitors that obstruct the mesolimbic pathway. The solution is the subtraction of marijuana, not the addition of more drugs. And like, his brain was so fucking stupid, he just refused to accept that. And so he took me in for medication. The psychiatrist agreed with me and didn't prescribe me any drugs. And on the way home, he's like, my mom, I loved her very much, and she died, and there was this song that she loved, and every time I hear it, it makes me sad and think about my mom, and I force myself to listen to it sometimes, and I'm like, oh my god, this fucking. So I told him, right, yeah, I see what you're saying. Your association, your thing about your mom and this song is an association, and you're implying that my reaction to marijuana is placebo. I assure you, it's biological. And he was so fucking retarded, his brain like refused to even process those words. It's like the words left my mouth, but they would not enter his brain. And that's the kind of support I get, right? Like, that's supposed to be help. So it is vital for me to increase brain functions, because relying on people like this, just like Vashon Island, apparently North Carolina, relying on white people, if you have mental illness, you're fucked. Because not all white people, but these white people are fucking stupid. Or worse, they're smart and they're dishonest. And so they're deliberately denying the connection between marijuana and schizophrenia for some sort of scrupulous motivation like money. Right? Big money in taxes or whatever. Money for the state. Oh, it's fine, yeah. And so it's particularly vital because no one's going to protect me from retards like this. Like, no one's going to protect me from the state. No one's going to protect me from the drug dealers. No one's going to protect me from the drug pushers. No one is going to be in my life to create an effective barrier between me and the harmful influence of fucking idiotic Americans. No one, not one person. So the price of functioning isn't just, abandonment, neglect, and isolation. It's hallucinations, etc. Like all the stuff that I'm going through now, because my brain is pointing out the fact that it is not irrational. Now, I am a man of reason, and that's where my schizophrenia is making fun of me. It's telling me that because you're a man of reason, that if you were to act on these impulses, you would end up in prison or dead, shoot out with the police or something. Back when you had a shotgun, no longer have my guns, sold them when I moved. So therefore, you're handicapped by your reasoning. And everything you're saying is beyond true. And when you're waiting for that civil war to happen last time, you were not the only one. Everyone was waiting for someone to get it started, to set it off, to make the first move, and that should have been you. And you know, it's like, well, no, because other people did act. There was a guy who fired on a Black Lives Matter faggot march in Kentucky or something, and he ended up he ended up in prison, but at least he did something, right? Like, so the more I reason this, the more there is no political solution. Obviously, you've all known that for a long time now, but the more that my schizophrenia tells me that this is not schizophrenia, this is completely logical, this is completely rational to want to murder corrupt politicians, and that throughout history, the only thing that has kept politicians honest is execution, the public execution of corrupt politicians. And so then you ask yourself, well, why didn't the FBI do it? Why isn't the military doing it? Why aren't the police? Why are law enforcement doing the bidding of corrupt politicians instead of standing against them? The answer is simple. Security. They sign their paycheck. If they were to take a stand, they would end up without a job, and therefore they'd be poor, and the fear of poverty, and etc. The loss of the hand that feeds them keeps them compliant and obedient for laws that are very unjust, very corrupt, and they enforce them anyway. Or not enforce them because, you know, Black Lives Matter. So it's been a common thing throughout history for intelligent people in times of war to suffer because they're aware of all this but can't do anything to stop it. Can't do anything to stop the war that's coming. And I went through that for a while too, and I'm like, well, let's embrace it. Let us not run or hide from these the possibility of violence. Let us prepare accordingly. And it takes more than just fantasizing about it, like I was doing just now. I was in delusion, seeing myself with eyes that a white light was glowing out of, just emanating out of my eyes, and I was basically superhuman, unstoppable, and murdered so many people in this fantasy in slow, horrific, torturous ways. And that didn't bother me at all. It made me want to act on these fantasies. Of course I won't. Like, those people are in Washington State and I'm in North Carolina. I don't have a car, I don't have a license, and I don't have any guns. Like, I'm not going to go acting on these fantasies. But that this sort of thing happens the more high functioning I get. Like, I'll start to smell, arguably olfactory hallucinations, but I'll start to smell marijuana from like 2 blocks away and stuff like that. And even when it's not there, and I know that, like, I know these are olfactory hallucinations. I know they're not real, but I can't maintain that self-control constantly. So I end up freaking out and moving or something like that. Like, that's probably the worst that's happened, is I'll just end up moving, but hopefully not, because I really do like this place. And yeah, for anybody who thinks like, oh my god, law enforcement better do something, well, my answer is law enforcement should have fucking never allowed them to legalize marijuana. Law enforcement should have done something a long time ago. They shouldn't allow the election to be stolen. They shouldn't have allowed gay marriage to be legalized when the majority of California alone voted no, and the government just overrode the popular vote. Where was law enforcement then? Where was law enforcement when the legalization for marijuana was made on, you know, salaciously false arguments that clearly were just, their only motivation was money, and they didn't care whose lives it destroyed. They don't care about the suicides, the homicides, the vehicular fatalities. Where was law enforcement then? Where is law enforcement when I tell law enforcement, as I've done many times, I have schizophrenia and marijuana sets it off? There's people smoking marijuana nearby and it's putting me into schizophrenia. And they basically, straight up, this happened in New Mexico, the recent one. They say, well, I know, I get it, but it's legal, so we can't do anything. Yeah. I can't imagine the Trump supporters who still back the blue aren't even the slightest bit self-aware of the hilarious stupidity of backing the blue when it doesn't back us. When it protects the drug dealers and the Joe Bidens, etc. Wasn't its job to be to protect us from people like that, not help and become people like that? Anyway, I'm gonna get back to drawing.